We are. So, Austin, you were just about to tell us that you're not a pizza guy or you're a franchise guy. So, jump into that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're part of a large organization called United Franchise Group. For anyone that doesn't know, and I grew up in the franchise business, and so I have a lot of experience in different franchise companies. Most of them actually being B2B franchise companies, and got into our emerging brands division where I was actually helping kind of start up different brands, come up with the systems, processes, operations manuals, franchise disclosure documents, and kind of bring them along and then plug them into one of our divisions here at United Franchise Group. And so I got a lot of experience in doing that and running our franchise development department, all of that here. And so when we finally acquired and partnered with Cannoli Kitchen, it was a good fit for us because it was a newer brand that had multiple locations. Well, not a newer brand, but a newer franchise that had multiple locations and needed to actually come up with those systems and processes and ops manuals and FDD, everything. And so I jumped in, loved the business. I've known the brand for a really long time and had it as an opportunity to really get it up and going from the ground up. So that's my background in franchising my whole life, really. And so this was the same thing, but obviously in a different industry.
And so, when you come in as, there's these five stores. They're obviously don't have, they have, something in common, but they're obviously not standardized the way we would think of them in franchising. And that's one of the values that you guys are bringing to these five stores is to bring that, okay, say standard kitchen package for one, and of course standardize, follow the system, or as John likes to talk about, franchising from a book. so so tell us a little bit about, we were just talking off air about the one of the really important pieces of equipment that you're now bringing in, and then I will turn it over to Joe because he won't be able to stop himself talking about pizza ovens.
Yeah. So the five locations, all based in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Pompano Beach, Deerfield Beach, and then a couple of locations in Boca Raton. They had a really good system, when we partnered with them and acquired the brand. But each location was doing everything a little bit different. They all had kind of their own little touches to it. They were all using a little bit different equipment, different ovens, and we really found a way to, take that to the next level and simplify operations and at the same time improve consistency across all of the locations with the new oven that we went with. And so the oven that we're using is a stone conveyor oven. It's an Italian made product, and we were able to really keep the quality of the product very, very similar or same as a New York style, stone oven pizza. And but at the same time, keep the simplicity of operations that the conveyor oven provides in a lot of different, pizza franchises that you see out there.
So Joe, help us out here. They, in some of their kitchens, they mostly have these deck ovens. What, from the franchising point of view, do you gain by putting in a conveyor oven, and why, in particular, is Austin's decision to put in this stone conveyor oven a smart move, the type of move that you expect out of a franchisor who's trying to standardize operations?
There are some immediate benefits to the conveyor oven, generally speaking, and that's why the I call them the industrial pizza operators like Domino's and Papa John's. because they're trying to deliver a very consistent product, and they're not going for being the best pizza around or being known as the place to go. They want to get a lot of pies out, and they want them to be the same. Most New York shops either use Baker's Pride or Blodgett ovens, and they're deck ovens. The preference is typically gas over electric, but the immediate benefit of moving to a conveyor oven is you have hot and cold spots in Baker's Pride and Blodgett ovens. There's always hot and cold spots because there's baffles below the stone. They get clogged, or they don't jet properly, and you just simply got the front of the oven and the back of the oven. One part of it's in the oven. So you have to have people who are trained to not only know how to rotate their cooking for oven recovery and making sure that they're cooking the pizza product to the right specification. You have to worry about the oven not recovering. If you go to a conveyor oven with this stone deck, which I've never tried to see one of these things.
You can't have it. Sorry, you can't have it. You already have one in your kitchen. You can't get another one.
Yeah, and I don't have that problem because my pizza oven cooks one pizza at a time, and it's always perfect, and it's very, I can program it in terms of its cooking. My recipe may not always be perfect, but the pizza's always cooked perfect. Anyway, but the idea of being able to get a perfect New York style baked pizza, because you've got a really trained person with an oven that is a Blodgett oven or a Baker's Pride oven that's working top notch, and be able to take somebody who's not at that skill level, show them how to make the pizza, and they don't have to worry about the oven rotation, the recovery, any kind of idiosyncrasies that are related to that particular oven. Because some ovens, you'll have one spot that's super hot all the time, and you know that you got to avoid that spot, or you use it to your advantage at peak times when other parts of the oven aren't recovering. You move that pizza to finish it to that hot spot to get it out there. You don't want people in a franchise doing all those things. So the idea of spending the extra money to get the technology that will deliver you the optimum product that you would get from a standard deck oven like this is pretty smart. I'm curious though, Austin, how did you guys do the testing?
Yeah, we did it at a couple of the different facilities, that the equipment facilities that had this piece. And so we went there multiple times. We went there with our products, with our dough, our sauce, our cheese, and made pizzas multiple different times. And we were sold on it. I was, going into it, I was not very positive about it because I was, conveyor oven, we don't know about this. And the product that it created was incredible. I'm telling you, you cut that pizza down the middle, it cracks right down the middle. Where you don't get that in a traditional conveyor. And we have a traditional, I guess you'd call it a wireframe conveyor in one of our locations, because we were testing, this operationally, but the product was compromised. And so we really wanted to take a step back and look at, what makes Cannoli Kitchen different, and what we're focused on. And that's the quality of our pizza, New York style pizza. And we're not willing to compromise on that quality of the product.
Yeah, there's something about the transfer of heat from a stone surface to the crust as opposed to a transfer of air. Because when you're running it through like the Lincoln Impinger ovens, it's impingement, which I don't know much about impingement, but it's the movement of air, and you're cooking a lot with the air in there, which is standard for an oven. But that transfer of heat from the stone and then cooking up through the dough, up through the crust, gives you a different taste profile.
Yeah, it creates that layer on the bottom of the dough that's crispy, essentially, for lack of better terms. So when you cut the pizza, or when you have a slice of the pizza and you fold it, it cracks down the middle. and it creates that consistency that everybody loves and knows is New York style pizza.
Yeah, and one of the aspects of the mouthfeel on a really well-made New York style pizza is having the crust that you just described, and then having that little bit of a gum layer between the crust and the sauce that's just al dente. And when you bite into it, you get that crunch, the softness of that gum layer, and then the sauce and the cheese, and that whole combination, that's the mouthfeel and the taste sensation. If you've got a great recipe and the flavors are right, now you've got magic.
Mm-hmm.
But and critically, sorry, John, were you going to jump in on something?
Yeah, I was, but I'll
Okay.
let you finish.
No, but just to bring this back is that, all restaurants are facing, wage increases, and this and what you're doing is saying this is part of this sort of put more intelligence in the machine and demand less intelligence from the operators at that entry level position, right? You're going to pay more for the machine, but when you look at the type of quality that you can get, then you balance that off against your entry level and say, okay, this is a good investment of machine intelligence because I don't have to spend $35 an hour for a very experienced pizza maker.
We've done some shows with Ben Kaleha from Live It, who also owns some franchise concepts in Europe, and he calls this whole idea de-skilling, and de-skilling in a positive way, where, just as Mike just described, taking the technology to ensure the product quality and taking that average employee and make them, by de-skilling, they can do extraordinary things that typically would take greater skill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not only that, Joe. It's those people that are usually making pizzas out of a Baker's Pride oven. They're not really hireable, to be honest, because they're usually the ones that have been in that one location for 20 years, 30 years, and usually they're the ones that own the location, or a family member of that person, or just a really close friend that's part of their family, essentially. And so they're not really easy to find. And, for us to scale as a franchise organization, we need to be able to point our franchisees in the right direction for them to hire the right people. So that's important to us.
Yeah, I mean, the only brand I can think of, there may be more, that has had some success of taking a New York or Long Island kind of pizza and scaling it has been Sbarro's. And they mostly developed in malls. There was great variation between the locations. They were successful in doing it for quite some time, but nobody's actually done it the way you guys are doing it on the street, and with the menu diversification that you're going with. Because from what I could see, and I've not been to a location, it's like walking into a New York slice shop. And you can get a slice of stuff, and especially if you've never had the pizza before, you can get a taste. And you can get a taste of some of these specialty combinations that you do, and you can get introduced through slices to the rest of the menu. That's kind of what I see from the website.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
John, just before there's a question about Jim Lopolito asks, is there an electric version of this oven, or is it what's the power on it?
Yeah. So there's an electric version and a gas version of the oven that we're using specifically.
Okay.
We're actually going to
test both.
We did. We tested both, and they do cook a little bit different because gas heats a little bit differently than electric. The electric one is actually more consistent because it's instant heat. Gas, as you know, kind of creates that air heat a little bit more, and so it's a little bit. The formula that we've created for it is a little bit different with the gas oven than it is with the electric oven.
Okay, well, John has a question, but I'm going to ask one more because I'm going to jump in line again. The two critical things in the pizza operation are the baking process, the cooking of the pizzas, and dough management. Those two things make all the difference in the world. Let's have John ask a question, then we'll go back to that. How are you marrying up dough management? Because what made me think of that was when you were testing the electric versus the gas, and that could change the way that you're doing your dough. And you can tell us about that, but let's let John talk.
All right, great. Because we're 15 minutes in and we've talked about ovens all that time. I know Joe is very happy, but we promised we're going to take a behind the scenes look. What the heck is United Franchise Group doing with a pizza franchise? But what's United Franchise Group doing with a Greek food franchise, etc.? There was the day, and I've known your father, Austin, a long, long time, when he was never going to touch food. It was only business to business, very successful, great niche. Somehow, though, you fellas found, or cannoli found you. I don't know what that story is. In other stories like Transworld Business Advisors, Andy found Ray. Andy says, I don't know anything about franchising. This is Transworld Business Advisors. I like what I'm doing in Florida. I don't know anything about Texas. I don't know anything about California. I don't know anything about Australia. And Ray says, well, we do, and we'll franchise Transworld Business Advisors, and turns it into the world's largest business brokerage. All right, now Cannoli Kitchen may become the world's largest pizza provider in time through franchising with the United Franchise Group. But go behind the scenes, Austin. Did you bring the concept to your father? Did Cannoli show up? I know there's no Mr. Cannoli, but did they show up and say, we got anything you want to franchise? How did it happen?
Yeah, so the story is pretty simple. We were actually actively looking to acquire a pizza brand. It was one of the categories that we were, actively looking for. And as you know, we have our consulting division, Accurate Franchising, who helps turn businesses into franchise concepts. And Cannoli Kitchen on their own actually approached Accurate Franchising to turn the business into a franchise. And so they did that. And when we became aware that they were doing that, we said, okay, they're in the pizza category. Let's look at them. And I went to Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton.
Okay, we're sorry you said that, but
yeah,
all right.
But I lived across the street from one of the Cannoli Kitchen locations. And so I was familiar with the brand, loved the brand. And, I said, we should look at this. And, it was actually my brother, Andrew, that initially said, hey, we should look at this. And I was like, oh, yeah, I love Cannoli Kitchen. And let's look at it. And so we did, and conversations got more serious, and we ended up going to the guys and saying, hey, instead of you guys turning this into a franchise and doing it on your own, why don't we partner and do this together? And that's really how it started.
And Florida Atlantic University is an excellent university. It's just not Palm Beach Atlantic University, and they do not teach franchising over at FAU, although many times people say, oh, I know where you are. That's FAU. No, that's Palm Beach Atlantic University, where AJ Titus was a student and president of the student body. Beyond that, that's how the connection comes together. It's probably the dream of everybody who goes to a franchise developer to turn their business into a franchise, that they're going to find a connection like United Franchise Group, which knows franchising and will take the brand and franchise it. Because as we know, most of these emerging brands, Cannoli Kitchen on its own, will struggle to get off the ground. 400 new franchise concepts a year, give or take some, a new franchise brand introduced every day. Some percentage of them, Mike may know, are pizza. It's a big percentage are pizza, and most of those go nowhere. So in order for Cannoli to find success in the marketplace, they need a strong franchise partner. And in this case, United Franchise Group saw something. And I want to know, what did you see? The food is good. I've had Cannoli Kitchen food. I'm going tomorrow, in fact. On my way, I'm going to Fort Lauderdale Airport. Whichever cannoli is the closest is where I'm going. But I've had the food previously. You donated food at one of our Titus Center events, which was fabulous. What did you see that said, okay, we want pizza. This is the one we ought to franchise?
Yeah. So it was definitely a lot of things that came out. It wasn't like, okay, it's a pizza brand, let's do it. We need a pizza brand. No, first of all, the numbers of the stores were very impressive, but we're not going to dive into that. We're going to dive into the differentiators. That they were very, very productive stores, and it was different from concepts. The bigger pizza franchises out there are more of your Domino's, Pizza Hut, Papa John's type brands where they've been wildly successful with a product that's more of a value product, and they've been very good at that. Whereas there's other large chains and pizza brands that have been more of the higher end or larger scale restaurants where you go in there and you sit down, you have a full Italian meal, and there's really nothing like in between. The only thing that would somewhat compare to the category that we're talking about would be like a Sbarro type chain, which they've kind of gone to the wayside. But we saw a smaller footprint, similar to the Domino's, Papa John's of the world, and a full Italian menu. And so that was a differentiator there, selling slices, but that also not being the main focus of the business. And so the slices are a differentiator, but we still focus on the larger deals, the caterings for businesses, the catering for family gatherings, that type of stuff, but out of a small footprint. A lot of the larger footprint places, they do that, but they also have that large footprint. We can produce those types of volumes, but in a very small footprint. And that's what we saw. We saw a quality product. We saw simple operations, potential of simple operations, and the ability to scale the business really, really quickly.
You talk about the small footprint. What is the footprint and what is the ratio front of the house, in front of the counter versus back of the house?
Yeah, so like to give you specific examples, like some of our locations are different than others, but the flagship location in Boca Raton, it's about 900 square feet, and the space in the front of house is 1/4 of the total space, and back of the house is the majority of the whole location. And so really just has a handful of tables. That location has 3 tables on the inside, and then they have a little patio with a few more tables. But our ideal footprint is 1,200 to 1,600 square feet, depending on the opportunity of space, with anywhere from 5 to 8 tables on the inside. So small dining space, mostly for the lunch crowd that comes in. But the majority of our business, up to 80% of the business, is to go and delivery. So that's what we're focused on.
Of all the brands you are operating, and you're familiar with all of them because you've been there several years since you came out of college.
The wrong column.
You have 8 or so brands, 10 brands maybe that you or 8 that you franchise. Isn't this the hardest business niche, pizza? Or Greek food is a niche, a specialty, and not that pizza isn't, but pizza is so broad and there's so many. You can't find, it's harder to find a good Greek franchised restaurant.
Yeah.
Pizza, harder to make money in a pizza shop?
Well, not necessarily, because number one, it's America's favorite food is pizza. And that's been the case for a very long time now.
Yeah.
Very, very popular. There's zero education that's needed on the food product itself. When you talk about different types of concepts, like even Greek, that's become a very, very popular category. There's still a little bit of education when it comes to Greek food. People don't understand it fully, or they're kind of afraid of trying it sometimes. But with pizza, it's extremely popular. It's extremely affordable for the consumer, and it's extremely profitable for the business owner. Your food costs are traditionally much better in the pizza business your margins are much better in the pizza business than they are in other businesses in the food space, just because of the nature of the product across the board. But the product itself to the consumer is very affordable. You can feed a family for a $20 pizza. Or a $30.
Margins are much better in the pizza
There's a lot of
business than
different
they are in other.
bundles that are available in the pizza space too. And so that is always a really important topic for us, is being affordable during all different times. During bad economic times, people will choose pizza because it's affordable. During good economic times, people choose pizza because it's delicious.
How are you competing on price, for example, with Domino's? And when I look at your menu and I look at Domino's, I look at the pricing. Are you more neighborhood driven? So the neighbors need to know cannoli is the place to go over any of the others, even if they're cheaper or they have these great deals? Or does that cut into your sales that you've got big competitors out there?
Yeah, we're definitely not considered the value pizza for sure. It's a little bit of a higher price point when it comes to comparing it to some of the more value pizzas. But yeah, we're definitely more focused on the neighborhood and being that quality, same category as that mom and pop type pizzeria, but people understanding the consistency of the nature of a franchise organization. That's exactly what we're trying to do. Also make it an easier, quicker, and convenient place to get takeout and delivery when compared to some of the larger footprint pizzerias that you can go into, and they're slammed on a Friday or Saturday night. We want to make it easy for people to come in and get their pizza and go, or order from home and have it delivered to them.
What's that ratio of delivery to pickup?
As mentioned before, it's about it depending on the location, it's up to 80%.
Yeah.
Off-premise dining. That'll break down differently for each location depending on the demographic. For example, in East Boca, that location, they're probably half and half pickup, half delivery. That's usually how it kind of breaks down. But we have a location that's on the beach in Pompano Beach, and it's right on the beach. It's a beautiful location, but it's kind of inconvenient for people to go there and pick up a pizza because the parking scenario is a little weird. And so people prefer delivery at that location. So it all depends on where it's at.
How are you doing the delivery? Are you doing it native, third party, hybrid?
A little bit of both. So we definitely are active on all the third party sites, all the popular third party sites. But we do in-house first party delivery as well.
Good.
I mean, John, if you think about trying to compete with, I'll call it the industrial pizzas, they're primarily their advantages in delivery, right? And that affects the type of pizza that they can deliver to you because of the hold time, right? 30, 40 minutes, a pizza in a cardboard box. Well, it's got to be built in a certain way. You take 30, 40, and so that's the area that why you can compete with these large different types of pizzas.
Yeah, I have a suspicion on that, Mike, and that is the cannoli kitchens of the world, which is like the local really good pizza shop, oftentimes shares their customer with Domino's, with Papa John's.
Oh, I think you're right. Yes.
And it's determined by the buying occasion and who's making the buying decision. Mom or dad buying pizza for themselves, going with cannoli. Mom or dad buying pizza for kids for a slumber party, where's the deal? Is it Papa John's? Is it Domino's? Who's got the deal so that I can feed these kids? Because they're really not here for the meal. They're here for their slumber party. So yeah, I think there's a natural sharing of customer depending on the motivation for the buying occasion.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with you 100%. And so we're more of that authentic Italian family dinner where, and it's not just pizza. You know, our menu is extremely diverse when it comes to Italian dishes, pastas, chicken dishes, salads, authentic Italian desserts. And so it's not just pizza. That's just what we focus on.
Well, that brings me to an interesting question. At least I think it's interesting. Supply chain and the production or of those products, are all of them made scratch? Are they coming in partially prepared? Are they done in the comments? How do you get the supply chain piece done, and how do you get the making of these other menu items?
Yeah. So it's not a complete scratch kitchen. There are some scratch items on the menu. Our dough, our proprietary dough and sauces are all coming through a commissary. And so it all is proprietary to us. Our, recipes for the franchise locations, moving forward. Most of our locations right now are producing their own dough and their own sauce in-house. That same exact product is going to be shipped to our franchisees twice a week, actually. And so the dough will be pre-made to ensure consistency. And again, along those lines, because as you probably know, Joe, dough is very tough.
Yeah.
It's very tough consistency-wise. A little too much of something, a little, less of something, and it's a completely different product.
The fermentation aspect of it is can be challenging, and just we have a heat wave going on. How good's the air conditioning in there? Climate control, all those things are factors. Let me ask you, as you move towards this commissary produced dough, is it frozen? Is it fresh? And how are you ensuring the dough management? Because even though you make the stuff someplace else, you still got the dough management aspect of it, because it's still, if it comes in frozen, once it thaws out, it becomes alive again or active again. If it comes in refrigerated, it came in active. How are you doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it all does come in frozen, all pre-portioned and frozen from our commissary. And we have the systems and processes in place to where every franchise location knows how to proof that properly. How to move it from the freezer to refrigeration, from refrigeration to room temperature. All the timing and checklists are all exactly the same to make sure we have the consistency across the board with all of our locations. So.
Yeah, and I as long as the quality is good of the dough that's being prepared in the commissary, I kind of like that, because it is more error prone in the mixing and initial proofing as compared to what you just described, the dough management once it's in the refrigeration.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and then to kind of add to that, Joe, to ensure that even to the last moment before the dough goes into the oven, that it's the exact temperature that we want it to be. We put the dough through an automatic presser machine that has, a heating and cooling element to it to make sure it makes that dough the exact temperature that it needs to be before it gets placed into the oven, and that everything across the board is consistent.
Are you doing them once you take it out of the dough press? I've used those before. I use Dough Pros. Are you putting it on a screen, or are you putting it on a wood peel?
It's going on a screen.
Okay.
So who's buying these franchises, Austin? How many have you sold? Is this taking off like wildfire, or is it a slower growth? What's happening? And compare it to Greek, the Great Greek, for example, which did take off, kaboom, and has continued to grow.
Absolutely. And to correct myself, Joe, I answered incorrectly. Some of our locations are using the screens right now, but it's a wood peel that we're going onto the new oven. So I've got my mind in two different places right now. But it's a wood peel going directly onto the stone on the new conveyor oven.
Excellent.
But yes, John, it's kind of a little bit of both. And so we've gotten a ton of interest in Cannoli Kitchen, especially in the Southeast. We are focused in the Southeast. We do have some developments outside of the Southeast in the Midwest. Outside of Detroit, we have a location that's developing right now. It's under construction. But yeah, we've sold 8 locations now 8 franchise locations, and we're going to be opening up a total of, 10-ish locations by the end of the year. And around the end of the year, give or take to January, February. And the pipeline is huge for our brand. We do have plans of selling an additional 20 or so locations by the end of the year, territories. And so this is taking off, and we are projecting some bigger numbers next year once we have all of our, systems in place, and we have, a lot of successful franchise locations. It'll be able to grow much quicker. And we're able to grow our team internally as well to handle all of those openings. But for now, we are, taking our time with these first few franchises that we're opening. But after that, it's going to be happening very quickly.
Fort Lauderdale will be our first.
Mm-hmm.
Are you selling the franchises directly? Or are you using a broker network? How's that happening?
No, we're not using any broker networks right now. So we're selling them all directly.
Traditionally, United Franchise Group sells directly, although I think you use some brokers in some areas as well. And you've been chiefly responsible through the years, recent years, and for lead generation. Is this an easier lead to generate because it's pizza and everybody loves pizza?
I would say it kind of goes both sides. Yes, it does get the interest because it's pizza. It's an industry, like I said earlier, that people all know and they're familiar with. But at the same time, a lot of people do look at it, with the same speculation as, some where it's a very crowded industry type of thing. But once we relay our differentiators and the way we put people into business, I think it makes a huge difference. And the way we set people up differently than other franchise companies.
Yep. So can I buy one cannoli kitchen, or do I have to buy multiples?
Oh, no, you can buy one. We're really focused on, people that want to do one location, 3 locations, or 5 locations really is the most that we want to do. And it really depends on the individual's background and what we think that they can handle, really.
Okay. And what's the investment?
So the franchise fee is $39.5. And the total investment for cannoli kitchens really, really different. And so it can range anywhere from a couple $100,000 up to, $500,000-$600,000, depending on what we're doing. Which kind of leads me into what I wanted to talk about like setting the locations up. We have a different approach than most other franchises. We look to go into existing pizzerias so that the frame is there, all the good bones are there, and we can really lower construction costs significantly by doing that. The oven that we have, this Pizza Group Dragon oven, it's designed in different sizes to where it can actually replace a Baker's Pride oven. And so if you go into a traditional pizzeria and convert it into a cannoli kitchen, it can happen very seamlessly, a conversion. And so that's our focus with Cannoli Kitchen. Not really focused on building out new spaces. We're focused on getting our franchisees into the business for a little bit of a lower cost and quicker, much quicker.
Good. Joe, what's up? What do you got?
On the distribution, you described where you're moving to commissary production of dough, getting it delivered a couple times a week. What limitations on your supply chain do you have for the territories that you can develop in? Where can you go now, and where are you focused?
Yeah, so we can go really anywhere in the eastern U.S., eastern half of the U.S., which is encompasses the Midwest as well. At least the eastern half of the Midwest. I don't know what everybody considers the Midwest, but I'm talking really Michigan down, just cut the U.S. right there. That's where we're focused on because we figured out distribution for that whole region. We're really just focused in the Southeast and the Midwest right now specifically.
A single distributor, a prime, single prime, who are you using?
We're using Performance Food Group right now.
Okay, great bunch of people there.
They're fantastic. They've been great for us.
And you know, Austin, when you want to add some new recipes, Joe has them, and he really does have them. Joe knows Italian food, so don't be shy. We want to see the Joe Caruso special over at Canola Kitchen.
All right, John, that was a very fine compliment. I'm way better at franchising, franchise development, franchise advisory and strategy than I am at cooking. I'm not bad, but I am not your R&D department.
That's fine. Maybe I'll ship you some freeze dried desserts and let you taste them.
Oh, you can send me stuff to bake off. I will do that. Send me stuff to eat. I'm all over that.
Okay.
So explain a little bit more about the conversion strategy, because I see it's on your website too. So you're looking. I mean, let me be the devil's advocate here. You have a rundown pizza shop, and it's run down for a reason. We don't want to convert that into a franchise. So, what is it from the people? What are you looking for that owner is missing, and so that when you bring your franchise brand and standards, you're able to up that location's performance?
Yeah, we really look for the ones in the middle. Like you said, you don't want the really run down ones, because there are a lot of those. People that have just been in business forever. Maybe they, just have really cheap rent and they're able to run, a somewhat profitable business on really, really low numbers. We're looking for them in the middle. Obviously, the really high performing ones, you don't really want to get into that as well, because they usually have a really good name in the area, and it's kind of a tough, bad blood type thing. Joe, you probably know, to kind of convert a real local mom and pop type place to a cannoli kitchen. You want to find that place that's kind of in the middle, maybe the bottom middle type area, where they want to, or they have potential. The area is good. There's not a ton of pizza places in the area, but we are very selective with that. And so, yeah, that's really what we look for. And we don't want it to be an old place. We want it to be, well kept. We make sure, the equipment is good, in good using condition. And that's really where we look at. It's all case by case basis, really, depending on the area.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, what I kind of heard, I mean, they're going into second generation existing pizza shops for conversion.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for single unit, that absolutely works. For multi-unit development, a 3-unit deal, a 5-unit deal, finding that first one, that's the way to seed the market. But you're mapping out the second generation pizza shops around the first one to get penetration. That's a little bit more of a challenge. It becomes more opportunistic. But you are right that there are a lot of, family-owned pizza shops that are feeding the family, but the people get old, they want to retire, and they may not have been, putting everything on the books, and they don't have anything that they can sell other than the equipment and the lease, or the building, or I'll sign a lease with you and rent the building to you.
Yep.
I'm sure you've run into that.
Almost every time. It's a basically asset sale of a business, because they're, older, been in business for a long time. Like you said, may not be running the books to show a profitable business. And really, it's just an asset sale of the equipment. And so that's what I run into all the time. But to be clear, we really are focused on that conversion type location as that initial location, like you said, Joe. And additional territories will, typically be new builds. They might be second generation restaurants, but we're not going to just kind of base the whole territory around, other pizzerias. So it is more.
You can't do market penetration on an opportunistic basis. You can complement a development strategy to penetrate a market with opportunities that are within that development envelope. But no, I can only go into second generation. or existing pizza shop conversion, that will hinder your growth, not expand your growth.
Yeah.
But knowing how to do it and do it well is an advantage.
Yep, exactly.
Let's circle back to John's point about the being part of United Franchise Group and all of your expansion into food at this point. Is there anything that you've learned, let's say, from the Great Greek in terms of, hey, we have to do this to expand at that sort of rate?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So a lot of things, from the technologies that they use to the systems and the processes, to training. We've learned a lot from training, the way that they've trained people over the years and gotten people into the business. It is a whole different animal, the food space, than other industries, and so it requires a lot more training initially. Because not only are you training the franchisees, you're training them to train their employees. And there's a lot more moving parts in a restaurant than there is to compare it to like a Sinorama, one of our other brands. Tons of moving parts, a lot more employees, a lot more turnover in your employees. Just the nature of the business. You're dealing with younger people. You're dealing with lower wages. You're dealing with all kinds of different things when it comes to that part of the business. And obviously there's restrictions on what we can do with them and for them in the franchise space in regards to hiring. But we need to guide them as much as we can, for them to make those decisions, because those are huge decisions. Labor costs will make or break a restaurant very easily, very quickly.
Yeah, it must be though that when you've got these, how many food brands you now have?
3.
3. Okay, so that attracts a higher class of supplier to you too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So you can start off with slower growth, but that supplier is looking at your other food brands and saying, oh no, I want to be a part of this whole 3 to 5 or whatever number of brands that you get out there. And that's, to go back to John's point, when you're a small emerging franchisor, you're just not going to have that weight behind you. And I don't care how good your developer is as a person, they're still not going to be able to bring that weight and say, hey, we've done 3, we're likely going to do 7 or 8 in the next 2 or 5 years. That to the supply chain's mind, yeah, I want to be a part of that growth.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike, both you and John make an excellent point. John's point about,
of course, John's point is better, right? That's what you're going to say.
No, it's different. He made a point earlier about minting of new franchisors at being at 400 a year, more than 1 a day. These suppliers, PFG has been fooled before. They're not likely to be, they don't like being fooled again. So they're going to be a little bit more circumspect and a little bit more questioning of the brands that they take on, because slotting in a warehouse and getting distribution and putting things on a truck, they're expensive. And if it's not going to scale, at least regionally, they don't want to do it. And they have people coming in all the time telling them about their whiz-bang new franchise, that they're going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, or the greatest thing since the invention of pizza. And we're going to have 50 units in 3 years. And 3 years go by and they've lost a unit, and they've got 2 out of the 3 they started with.
And I think you said I think you said PFG. You meant UFG. But I know
no, he's talking about performance.
Performance Food Group is
okay. Yeah, I thought you were talking about UFG seeing so many concepts that they know a good one from a bad one.
Oh, PFG, that's probably true too.
PFG.
So UFG and PFG have something in common.
Yes, exactly.
They know how to kiss frogs. They know how to kiss frogs.
You're absolutely right, though, Joe. Even with being a part of United Franchise Group, they are very questioning on those projections that we give them, because they've seen it time and time again. But they understand us and they trust us. They see how we've scaled other concepts as well, and we do have an advantage when it comes to that.
Right. Sorry, what was the other? John, did you have another question?
Nope, that's I wanted the behind the scenes story, and wanted to see what UFG has in mind for the development. I've been contacted through LinkedIn and other sources by people who want to know, where is this brand going to go, and why pizza? United Franchise Group and pizza didn't sound like that goes together, but United Franchise Group and Greek food didn't sound like that went together either, but it's nice. It's a great marriage. And so food is new, number of years now for UFG. They also were in the sub business at one point. So it's franchising, and the Titus family knows franchising. So I think this is what people want to know more about. Why get involved with UFG? Why get involved with pizza? And why specifically, what's different about cannoli that I should go in that direction?
Yeah, you bring something very interesting about UFG, and I have a question for Austin. What prompted the founding, and let me make sure I get this name right, of Starpoint Brands, and how has that worked out in explaining to people that you guys are serious about this and you're in the food business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so Starpoint Brands has become more of the consumer public-facing name for our franchise brands, because when people look at our company and they see United Franchise Group, that doesn't really mean anything to consumers. People in the franchise space know it, but to consumers, they don't really. That doesn't make sense to them. And so we wanted to have a name that can represent all of our franchise brands, and attract different people. With Starpoint Brands, a lot of different things will come following that. Loyalty programs for all the brands combined. Lead generation for franchisees, that type of stuff, and also kind of peeling that off into different divisions. We've created our food division, Big Flavor Brands.
Okay.
We'll have our food brands underneath that. And so we're really trying to hyper focus each one of our divisions here at United Franchise Group. Ever since we've really gone into a lot of different industries, it becomes more and more confusing to the consumer. And so we want to make sure that we are ahead of that when it comes to communication.
Going back to John's question about the selling of franchises and your pipeline, what kind of the people who have signed up, what was their background? What was attractive to them, and what were they doing before they signed up for cannoli?
It's really a mix of a lot of different things. It's probably about half people that are in the food space or have been in the food space from a managerial perspective or even an ownership perspective. And then the other half would be, all kinds of walks of life, people that have had success in other businesses or other careers, that maybe they have a family member that is in the food space that they want to bring into a business to start together, type of thing. But it's kind of a mixed bucket on that half, but on about half of the group is, restaurant focused.
How about the multi-unit deal that you did, with the 6 or 8 unit deal that you did? What was their makeup?
So their background was in completely different industry, not the food space. Education and finance, and have very successful careers. They want to do something for themselves and with themselves, their family. And so it's going to be their family really running the space, and with the help of family members that have been in the food space and have the experience. So
they've got a familial business, financial backing, and operational expertise.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
Within the group that they brought to the table, they didn't have to go find them. They came made ready for Cannoli Kitchen.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I look at it and, see kind of the perfect mixed bag there, different types of skill sets.
Well, you got to have the operational partner and you've got to have the financial partner, because one without the other, it's not going to work.
Exactly.
And there's plenty of people that have operational expertise, but lacking that capital, you can't make up for good operations with no money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, on that note,
Lovely note. We can go. Let's end on a better note than that.
yes, we can't end on that note, Austin. Give us something uplifting to end on, other than, hey, if you got no money, you can't have my pizza franchise.
Yeah.
Well, it's true.
That sounded awful. That sounded absolutely awful.
You're not misleading anybody.
If it makes you feel better, Joe, we make sure everybody is properly funded
There you
before
go.
they come in,
There you go.
and they have the financial means to do the business, of course, and can either get approved for a certain amount on a loan, or has the cash.
Yeah,
So.
I was not questioning that. I didn't want to make it sound like I'm maligning people with operational expertise with no money. That's what I was more worried about.
No, absolutely. You're right. You're right.
All right, we come back and talk to you in a year. How many units do you have open?
In a year,
Yeah.
I would say we would have 30 or so franchise units that are open. And by then, probably an additional 50 units that are developing or in some type of stage of development. It's really exciting, because once we get the pipeline built up, which we've done that a little bit already, these openings can happen much quicker than traditional restaurants, just because the nature of our build outs. And so we're super excited about that.
Okay, John, you asked the last question. Make it the most uplifting question, because Joe and I just brought this all down.
Well, I don't have it's not necessarily an uplifting question, but it's an important question. When will we have Cannoli Kitchen in West Palm Beach, near Palm Beach Atlantic University's Titus Center?
It will be soon. It will be soon.
Okay. Like soon, a year from now, soon 3 months from now.
I'm hoping by the end of I'm hoping that's one of those locations that's either by the end of the year or give or take January, February.
Yeah.
Very good.
If we're being realistic.
John, you needed to ask, is Palm Beach location near the university in site selection right now, and how many sites are they looking at? You need to ask it that way.
He's allowing me to give a little bit more of a vague answer, I think.
All right, very good. To end on a self-interested note. Wonderful. All right. Thank you very much, Austin, John, Joe, as usual. Been fantastic. We'll talk to you later on, Austin. Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Very
guys.
good. Thanks, guys.